そろそろ終わりにしんしょうかい。
Okay, boys, set the terror level at code brown, because I need to change my pants.
What is going on, my beautiful viewers? And I am back again today to do another episode breakdown of Season 1 of Overlord. I know, right? 2 back-to-back. Haven't done that in a while. So, guys, I don't know if you guys saw that community post I put out last week, but this one took a while to get through because this is by far the most amount of light novel covered in an episode of Overlord up to this point. This episode spanned over 100 pages of the light novel for Volume 3. For reference, last time's episode, Episode 9, didn't even cover 40 pages. There is over double the length of light novel that is covered in Episode 10 than in Episode 9. That's insane. Basically, the plot beats are the same for the most part. It's just it expands on the backgrounds and motivations, and also gives you some more Yggdrasil information as well. Those are big moments in this section. So I actually really like this episode of Overlord overall. It really kind of feels detached from all the other episodes this season. Unlike later seasons where this becomes more of a common thing, this episode is the first episode of the Overlord series where the majority of the time is not focused on Ainz. The majority of the episode is taken up showing Shalltear's actions, as well as Sebas and Solution's actions, working with Shalltear, enacting a plan that was laid out by Ainz. So like I do every time we start a new volume, I'll go over the extras in the beginning parts of Volume 3. So we're given some really good art in the beginning, like a little part here. So the first piece of art is this cool confrontation piece between Shalltear and Ainz. This is obviously going to be later on in the volume. And then on the flip side, we have this piece of art, which is Brain attacking Shalltear. Shalltear kind of yawning there. And Brain looks like he's going freaking Super Saiyan there. It looks like he did a line of coke before he's attacking her. But really great art from Soben going all out in the beginning of this volume. So I'm gonna stop really quick to say that almost 70% of our viewers are not subscribed, and apparently the algorithm helps if I say this earlier on in the video. But guys, please, if you aren't already, please subscribe to the channel. It'll let you guys know immediately when I post these breakdowns so you can get them as fast as possible. And of course, if you want to see more breakdowns, you gotta like the video as well to let me know. Alright, shameless plug out of the way, let's keep going with the breakdown. So the episode opens up on Sebas and Solution, who are acting as a noble lady and her butler from a part of the Baharuth Empire. They are basically trying to find criminals who know martial arts. They didn't exist in Yggdrasil. They're an entirely unique power to the New World, so Ainz wants to learn more about them, and he wants specifically to capture criminals because he views them as people that won't be missed when they're gone. Sebas and Solution have kind of made names for themselves, or at least made themselves known in Irantel by purchasing a lot of stuff. So like they're clearly very wealthy, and they're basically trying to make them seem like good marks. And that's where their hired hand Zack comes in. Now in the anime, I don't even think his name is his name said? I can't remember. He is basically a complete nothing in the anime. Just he's there for like on screen for maybe a minute total. In the light novel, we get this guy's entire life story. It's actually insane. I'll get into more of that later, but yeah, this guy has way more stuff going on with him in the light novel. So when Zack is trying to delay their departure from the inn, Sebas is easily able to see what's going on, and he's like, okay, this is fine, this is what we wanted anyway. So a character that's actually entirely removed from the anime is this guy named Baldo. He's a merchant, a well-known merchant in Irantel. He controls a considerable amount of the food trade, so he's very, very well known, and he talks to Sebas for a little while about, hey, I don't think you should trust that Zack guy, he's kind of shady, I'll give you some of my guards, like, I don't want anything bad to happen to you guys. And this is actually a really good time to talk about Sebas, because this whole part of the story is from Sebas' point of view. This is really where we get to see his diverging thinking from a lot of Nazarick, because it starts off with Sebas saying, like, you know, most of Nazarick, you know, hates humans. At first, Sebas is like he doesn't even want to be near them. But then he gets like 2 examples of humans that make him feel differently. First is Zack, and Zack is obviously this slimy guy, and Sebas is very easily able to pick up on that. His impressions of Zack basically leaves him with a bad taste in his mouth, and it's just like, maybe everyone in Nazarick is right. Like, maybe humans should be viewed this way. And then he meets Baldo, and Baldo is being so kind and is also like very obviously concerned for them. And even though he can tell that Baldo is like offering these things as like a way to form a connection, he can tell that Baldo also is genuinely good-willed and is actually concerned for their safety. And then it makes him like go back like, oh, this guy would be, worthy of protecting. So then we move on to the scene in the carriage with the conversation between Sebas and Shalltear. I thought it was funny when they're talking about the voice actors and what a voice actor is. Also, a difference in the light novel is that it wasn't Ainz meeting Peroncino, it was Nishiki Enrai and Lucifer meeting Peroncino. Peroncino's basically saying like, yeah, I can't play this Arrowgate anymore because my sister is a voice actress in it, and so can't play that game. But I thought it was funny because like obviously it's a voice actress saying the lines and they're gassing up voice actors in this scene. It reminded me of that meme with Obama putting the medal on himself. Like that scene kind of just embodies that. But as I said, this conversation is much longer in the light novel, and they bring up a lot of really interesting topics in this conversation. So one of the topics that they skip over is Sebas and Shalltear discuss the 8th floor of Nazarick, where they are not allowed on the 8th floor. They talk about how they're not sure who's on the 8th floor. They know it's Victim's floor, who's the floor guardian of the 8th floor, but they don't really know a lot about like who's on it. They also bring up Pandora's actor because they're discussing, was the person on the 8th floor, that the really strong NPC on the 8th floor, were they created by Ainz? And then Sebas is like, oh no, the one created by Ainz is known as Pandora's actor. At this point in time, they haven't met Pandora's actor, and Shalltear doesn't even really know about Pandora's actor at all. Like they just don't know. He's a very mysterious character, but he's discussed in this scene. Another thing that's brought up is when Sebas asks Shalltear why she doesn't get along with Aura, and she responds that it's because Peroncino programmed her that way, because Buku Buku Chagama and Peroncino designed them to have kind of like a sisterly relationship just like them, which I think is kind of cute. But then Shalltear counters with Sebas that like Sebas doesn't get along well with Demiurge, and that really has to do with their alignments, because I've said this before, but Sebas has basically the most positive alignment you can have. He's positive 500, so extreme good, whereas Demiurge has the most evil alignment you can have, minus 500, extreme evil. Sebas describes it as just being an instinctive dislike, and it's also shared by Demiurge. They just don't like each other because of their alignments, I think, and that's like, it's not programmed into them, but now that they're alive, it's just something that they feel. The additional scene that isn't in the anime, but is in the light novel, and it's also in the recap movie for this part of the anime. They actually like added it into the recap movie, where Sebas asks Shalltear how she's going to capture the criminals that are going to attack them, and Shalltear said that Ainz said that she could kind of just drain them and do whatever she wanted with them. Sebas counters like, oh, well, wouldn't Aura have been better for this job? Or, maybe Demiurge, because Demiurge has his command mantra and he can just like order them to, obey him and stuff like that. And she gets pissed off by that, accusation, saying like, oh, you don't think I'm good enough for that? And like, she kind of like flares up, gets ready to fight, like, oh, you want to fight me, Sebas? This is where we learn that Sebas is a dragonoid. I've actually found out that a lot of people don't know like what Sebas is, like, because he has the appearance of a normal human and his appearance never changes in the anime, but Sebas is actually a dragonoid. He's or called a dragon man. That's what the official light novel says. What you see in the anime, that's not his true form. He can change forms, and that's something that's mentioned in a previous volume. Albedo also has, and Demiurge also have different forms. It was a very popular design to give NPCs different forms. So then we move on to the bandits' attack on the carriage and everything that goes on there. So something I explained earlier is that in the light novel, we get Zack's backstory and like his entire life story and how he ended up where he ended up, whereas in the anime, he's just completely irrelevant. So basically, Zack's story is he was a peasant farmer, and he lived under terrible conditions because the nobles would take more than what they should from him because the nobles of Riestes are corrupt as fuck. They were so poor that his parents sold his little sister into slavery in order to survive, and he like never got over that. And he was drafted into the army 3 times for various conflicts against the Baharuth Empire. He was just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm out of here. I'm not gonna go back to being a farmer. And then he joined the mercenary group, the Death Bringing Brigade, I think is what they're called. It also goes into detail about his past experiences and like other raids he's been on, and you know, kind of the fucked up shit that these guys do. I think you can infer what I'm talking about here. But then we have the bandits attacking them, and of course them not knowing what the fuck they were getting into. The only things I want to comment on in this scene is that as with most of the deaths in Overlord, they toned down the gore. It's still plenty gory in the anime, but it's just worse in the light novel. And then number 2, what actually happened with Solution? Because it just kind of happens in the anime, and I don't think you can really understand what's going on. Way more fucked up than you think. And so what Solution actually is she is a slime. Basically, when he grabs her, his hands go into her, right? But her slime body is acidic. So basically, when he sinks his hands into her, it's burning his hands. He's like melting away because it's acid. And that's why he's screaming, because his skin is being fried by the acid of Solution's body. And Solution intentionally makes it slow. Shalltear talks to Solution about what exactly she's doing with him. She even says like, oh no, he's still alive. Like, he's just within my body now, and I can like lower or raise the acidity of my body, and she's intentionally keeping it low to like make it longer. That's why he was screaming. I think maybe in the anime it just came across as like, holy shit, why the fuck am I going into this woman? But in the light novel, it's very clearly that this guy is actually being melted. It's really bad. So then we move on to Shalltear's assault on the actual base of the Death Bringing Brigade, and actually something I want to bring up is her vampire brides that are with her. We see them in the anime, but they're never really explained what those are. Those are Shalltear's servants, basically, and they also are her concubines. That's like something that she was designed to have. There's actually a scene in the light novel where Shalltear reaches out to touch one of the vampire brides, and Sebas is like, and like doesn't want to see that shit. She's just like, okay, I won't do it in front of you. And Shalltear does not treat them well. Because they're considered very weak by you know, the NPCs, the upper NPCs level. Shalltear like mulls over killing them several times, like in the light novel. Like, she doesn't view them as anything. Like, they're not treated very well under her. But that's just some additional information as to what those things are. Like who are these women with Shalltear? It's never really touched on in the anime. So something that's cut out of the anime is the guy that the vampire brides charmed in order to find out about Brain and the base. Shalltear actually turns him into a vampire, and once they find the base, she uses him basically as like catapult ammo. She grabs him and throws him at the base to like basically take out the guys guarding the front. And so that just goes, it was just another act of cruelty really from Shalltear. Not that these guys didn't have it coming. So then we have Brain and Shalltear's confrontation, which is you know, obviously the introduction of Brain, who becomes a major character, and also one of my favorite characters in the show. We get to learn more about where Brain came from and how he was born with just this amazing talent with the sword. He basically never trained at this point in his life. Like, before fighting Gazef, he never really trained. And then when he fought Gazef in the tournament and lost, that was when everything changed for him. It's basically an eye-opening experience for him. You know, I'm not the strongest. There's a higher level of strength to reach, and I'm going to start working at it now. Specifically, why he joined a mercenary brigade is because he wanted to fight other people, because his goal is to specifically defeat Gazef. He didn't want to be an adventurer because because adventurers fight monsters a lot, and he wants to fight against actual people. So at first he has a couple little exchanges with the vampire bride, but it's clear that she's not strong enough to quickly defeat Brain. I'm not entirely sure. I think Brain is stronger than her. Then Shalltear comes in, and this is where we you know, see his martial arts. So something I want to comment on in the anime that I think was just a straight up mistake, and this is specifically for the dub, because in the sub they don't make this mistake, but in the dub, after Shalltear blocks his attack. She goes and says, like, do you not have any more martial arts to use? And then Brain goes, martial arts? That's what you think I was doing? That makes no sense. Someone at Funimation must have hit the crack pipe before they wrote that script. What actually happens in this scene is basically Brain uses his most powerful martial art he has on Shalltear, and she, catches it. And then what she says in the light novel and in the sub of the anime is, are you going to use martial arts, or can you not use martial arts? And then Brain's just like, oh, that's how you see it. Like, oh, you didn't see it as martial arts because I'm so weak. That's what it was, because I rewatched these episodes in the English dub, and I was like, what the fuck are they talking about? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's complete nonsense. Lost in translation, I guess. The fight between Brain and Shalltear is also longer in the light novel. Another thing that happens is Brain tries again to use Whistling Wind on Shalltear, and he goes for her leg the second time. But what she does is she basically just steps on it with her heels, and it knocks the sword out of his hand. She's just completely shitting bricks at this point. He's like, how is she able to react to this shit? Not only did she grab the back end of it, which is even worse than blocking the front of it, she stepped on the sword like while he was swinging it and knocked it out of his hand. And so then, of course, Brain runs away because he realizes, yeah, this is not going to end well for me if I stick around. This is where Shalltear transforms into her actual true form. So let me explain that a little bit more. The form that Shalltear takes with the kind of lamprey looking, that is her actual true form. How she looks when she isn't in that form is a facade. She's a true vampire, and true vampires all look like that. They look like monsters. And her form, I don't think they did it justice in the anime. It's supposed to be even more disgusting in the light novel from the descriptions of it. So this is the picture of Shalltear in her true form in the light novel. So as you can see, it's even more grotesque. She has like a big wider mouth, and her fingernails are kind of crazy. Her mouth, it opens up like past her ears. Like, so it's almost like her whole head is like, Pac-Man. And they talk about how her canines extend past her chin, like Diego in Ice Age, freaking just like huge, long, grotesque teeth. So then we have her slaughtering the bandits and the adventurers that come afterwards. Really, the only thing I want to say is, once again, much more brutal. So when they attack Shalltear in the light novel, instead of the attacks just bouncing off like they did in the anime, they actually hit her, but they just don't hurt her. Like, they're shoving swords like through her back and like through her head, and she has like swords sticking all out of her body, but she just doesn't react to it. Just does nothing to her. Just tears them apart. Like, there's a scene where she like literally eats a guy's whole head because her mouth can just like completely detach itself. The whole scene is just gruesomely crazy in the light novel. It's insane. Obviously, they probably couldn't show that on television, so I don't blame them for the censorship. So then the final part of this bit is her confrontation with the Black Scripture. I wanted to point out, they did this in the anime as well, but she singles out the captain of the Black Scripture as the most powerful. He is ridiculously powerful by New World standards. In the light novel, Shalltear is trying to size him up, but because she's not specialized as a warrior, she can't really do it too accurately. He is definitely more powerful than Solution, who's level 55. So this guy is strong. So I do think I need to explain something that is enlightened upon us in the light novel as to why the Black Scripture is there. So the reason why they're there is going back to episode 4 of season 1. When Ainz countered their surveillance magic, that made them think the Calamity Dragon Lord had been revived. And one of the specialties of the Black Scripture is hunting down Dragon Lords. So that's why they sent the Black Scripture out. And so basically, Ainz kind of caused the Black Scripture to be there. Shalltear sees Lady Kyrie about to cast the magic from the world item, and she actually like looks away because she's like, oh, why is this old lady wearing this dress? Like, I'm just not even gonna pay attention to her. And if she had acted quicker, she might have been able to save herself. So there was a lot of ifs. Like in the light novel, they said like if, and it's like all these ifs just coming together to form this perfect scenario where Shalltear can be mind controlled. So now actually the anime skips ahead. We at this point in the light novel, the intermission happens, which I'll explain more next time, because this is already becoming a super long breakdown because of how much stuff they covered in this episode. Well, we skip ahead to Ainz finding out about everything and going back to Nazarick. Anime episode ends with them, going to go out and figure out what's going on with Shalltear. But in the light novel, Ainz is talking to Albedo, and he's just like, let's go see your older sister. So anyone who's watched season 4 of the anime would know Albedo's older sister, Nigredo, that's where she she made her anime debut. But yes, that is a huge thing that they cut out of the anime, is Negretto is introduced all the way back in Volume 3. She should have been introduced in Season 1 if the anime hadn't removed her. I'm going to go into that next time. I'll explain everything about the scene and what goes on with Negretto there as well. So there's going to be a lot of just straight up explaining missing chunks of the story in the next breakdown I do. So guys, with that, we reached the end of episode 10, and like I said, holy crap guys, just so much content. This is probably the longest breakdown I have yet. It's so much information, over 100 pages, more than double the amount of pages of our last breakdown. But I really like this episode. I feel like there's always like one Guardian that's focused on in a lot of the arcs, or NPC. There's always an NPC that gets focus in every arc of Overlord. In the Undead King, it's Albedo. In the Dark Warrior arc, it's Narberl. And then in this arc, of course, it's Shalltear. And honestly, this is such a huge arc, because this event basically steamrolls pretty much Ainz' behavior for the rest of the series, and a lot of his actions are taken because of what happens to Shalltear. So this is just a massive moment in the Overlord series as a whole. And of course, this is the arc where we learn a lot about Shalltear, because Shalltear kind of becomes a pretty minor character after this arc, which makes sense because there's a lot of characters to focus on in Overlord, and she gets like an entire arc of focus. But she doesn't really make a whole lot of appearances in the story after this point. She makes like a brief appearance in Season 2, and then of course she's involved in the events of Season 4, but she doesn't really do a whole lot more. I definitely like that we got her focus, and especially just an entire episode just focused on her is really cool. So guys, what did you think of this episode breakdown? What did you think of the missing information? Please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. You know I love to hear from you guys. I already asked, but of course, please like, subscribe, all that jazz. I already did that plug earlier in the video, so I'm not going to do it again. I'll save you guys. With all that being said, I want to thank you all for watching through the very end of the video, and I will see you all next time. Bye.